everybody. It's Brittany Harlow with VNN. Thank you for tuning in. Um, Verified News Community, we have our verified newsies, our verified news leaders. If you don't know, now you know you fit into one of those categories, and we will talk about that in a minute. This is your first time tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. Just a little bit of information about VNN, stands for Verified News Community, Verified News Network. And you're in our verified news community by tuning in to our live stream. We do it on Wednesday nights. I'm trying to do them every night, Wednesday nights. I'm our lead journalist and director, as I said, Brittany Harlow. Our network is a little different than traditional networks. We're mobile based. Our journalists have experience in journalism as well as degrees. I myself worked in radio and TV for 4 years before coming over and doing this. We have evolved through our journey to be having a really core mission of empowering women, minorities, and entrepreneurs through news media. And that naturally developed after doing this we're in our 4th year now, so about 3 years and I would say 3 months, 3. And we just, through our work, realized that there was a huge gap in those areas that was left over from mainstream media. And so that is what we essentially are trying to fill. I had a really funny thought before I logged in to do tonight's live stream, and that it is incredibly nerve-wracking for me to do this. And I'm not sure why. I think it's just still because it's so new. I think that this is like the 5th live stream, 4th or 5th that I've done on my own. And I used to anchor like live newscasts for 30 minutes straight in front of, thousands of people. And for some reason, doing these VNN live shows really it gives me a lot of anxiety. And I don't know why. I think that we have maybe like 12 viewers of each one. And it's like steadily increasing over time, which is the goal. And I hope to one day, have thousands of viewers on this live stream show. But it's still the same nerves, and it's just so unknown. The technology is new for me. Shout out to StreamShirt. I feel like I have to shout them out forever. I was on a TV show for entrepreneurs representing this company as a news entrepreneur, and they taught me a lot about live streaming and the software. If you want to be a part of the conversation, I always want to open that up to our verified news community because for a long time I felt like, this news position was like sitting on a soapbox and me telling you about what I think is important. And I mean, it is in a way, but I want this to be a two-way conversation. I want you to either email me, bharlow@verifiednews.network, drop us a comment in the chat. This is live. I'm monitoring them. If you go there right now, you'll see the link to donate to our VNN PayPal. I got a notification there. And I wanted to make it a point, again, if you haven't tuned in or been a part of our network yet, this entire month we are donating all of the donations that we received to promoting our story about April Wilkins that we released at the beginning of the month. And so we'll talk more about that in a minute. But it's a very important story, and we've already had a woman this week, Amma from Tulsa, donated $100 to promote her story for more people to see that, and that was an amazing give. So thank you so much. We put all of that money right towards promoting her story and getting the word out. I talked to April on Fridays about our coverage and how everything is doing, and I just can't wait to share that update with her. That people are hearing her story and are as outraged as we are. So Again, if you want to chime in, that's my email. Drop us a comment. I'll respond to them. Um, and just thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and what we do. Everyone in our verified news community, whether you are just starting out as a verified newsie or you are upgraded to a verified news leader, which is actively supporting what we do and making these stories happen. Um, a little more about that story that I had mentioned. It was a story that took us more than 4 months to put together. I had come up uh, or come across her story through her niece who had messaged me on Instagram. She has a blog about the injustice that her aunt suffered. And I looked at it and I kind of looked into it and got caught up with other things. And then I took a second look at it, and it was just, this crazy story that happened more than 20 years ago here in Tulsa about a woman who killed her abuser and was sentenced to life in prison. And, I was like, surely there has to be more to the story. I dug into it. I dug into the court records. I dug into the affidavits, the witness testimony, the physical evidence that was recorded, and everything I came across showed that she was a serious victim in that case that had been abused and worse for a long time, and the state treated her uh, so shamefully with how they prosecuted her and told her that she was no victim despite physical evidence showing that she had been beaten and worse. And numerous times to turn to law enforcement for help, and they wouldn't help her. And so ultimately she did end up killing her abuser, who was the son of a local millionaire here and a big sponsor of local media. And that's why you don't hear that story very often, and probably won't hear it anywhere other than right here on VNN, because he's a huge funder of the mainstream media here, and that means that those stories don't get told by anyone else other than people like us who see these needs in the community and realize they're not being met and take it upon ourselves to do just that. And so, like I said, every donation that we receive to VNN this month goes towards promoting her case. It's doing fairly well so far, but I'd really love to see it, have some national virality, and that can only be done by people like you seeing this video, seeing that video, sharing them, and helping us spread the word, because a lot of what we do is grassroots, community-led. For me, really important that these stories get told and we start helping people who really need it. I had an idea that it would be for us to kind of talk about other stories that are going on as part of like our live stream, kind of testing it. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. This is our platform. If you've never seen it, it's located at app.verifiednews.network. It's just it's called a web app, but essentially it's like a fancy website that lets you do things like log in and create an account. It's social media designed exclusively for verified news, so you're able to like customize things. And I don't think that I'm even logged in right now, but I'm a journalist, as I said, our lead journalist. So I have a journalist account. A lot of the stories that you'll see are from me, but if you take a look here, we got our top story recently from our journalist, Rocky Brown. She really is phenomenal. She's in New York, Binghamton to be exact, and the stories that she, tells in her community are so empowering, and which is what we're all about. And so I absolutely love her and what she does. We have two very active journalists right now, aside from myself. That's Rocky in New York, and then we have Rachel in Michigan. And so they are all stars every week, getting content that's important to serve their local communities, and oftentimes stories that no one else is telling. And so the story that she wrote tonight was about this write-in candidate who is hoping to win the mayoral election. I believe it's next month. And what a interesting story. And so even though I'm in Oklahoma and she's in New York, I looked into, the story about this gentleman that, he's running against the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate there. And he just has, like, he, won't give up on putting his name in the hat. And so it's a really cool story. Other local organizations had reported on him in that area before because he had gone out and got signatures, because that's how you get on the ballot. But someone protested like 190 of the signatures that he had gotten, and 130 of them were sustained as like objections, and that diminished his count. But that means like 60 of them were legitimate that were protested against. But that's another point, that they were making complaints about signatures that actually were valid, but the ones that were invalid obviously got tossed out. He had said at the time, I guess, that when he was asking people, they said they were registered to vote, they were eligible to vote, and so he got their signature, but it turns out some of them weren't. And so again, his name was taken off the ballot, but now he's running as an independent. He just, from what I was reading about him and what he had said to her, caring about the community, a community member that has a lot of the same struggles that community members there have. So to me, reading a story about someone who has so much drive for change, like whether they, get the big win or not, that's mentioned in the headline, I thought it was really cool just to kind of see that spirit to not give up on what you believe in. And so that's something I really appreciate. Here in Oklahoma, I don't have to tell you really that we had severe weather on Sunday night. It was crazy. Me in particular, fun story about myself. I play soccer, and on Sunday afternoon, I had a soccer game, and I totally blew my knee, and I couldn't walk very well after. I then played on my knee that I shouldn't have done, but I kind of felt like my team needed me, and so I played the rest of the game. It didn't feel terrible, but I'm sure I partially dislocated it, and but it popped right back into place. So I played the rest of my soccer game. And then, I went home and I was like, oh, it's kind of sore. And then with all the tornadoes, I went and spent 2 hours shoved up into my tornado closet. But of course, I have a 2-year-old, and so he got to lay comfortably across the whole thing while I was like scrunched in the corner, trying to not wake him up as like the sirens were going off and the lightning, didn't really affect us in the closet, but the thunder from the lightning was very loud. And so that was a crazy night. And just to point out exactly how crazy it was, we did a recap of essentially all, and that's like, we haven't had, I want to say like in the last few years, it's been not necessarily quiet, but it hasn't been like super crazy as far as tornadoes go, but this was a pretty crazy day, and they talked it up. And when I wrote this story, I was like, man, we need to mention just how great the other, we did a couple stories about it. The local, all the local channels were all over it. All the officials, law enforcement, government officials, of course, the National Weather Service in the area. Really did a great job of informing everyone that there was going to be severe weather. And is that going to stay there? Yeah, maybe. We'll see. If you hear a loud bang, that was it would be my water falling. But that just totally in the loop what was going on. um, in my little tornado closet as the alarms were going off in the area. I could hear the tornado sirens that went off a few times. I'm pretty sure I got called no less than 10 times each time there was a new tornado warning or there was new tornado information. But this story that I had written, I believe yesterday, uh, I I really love writing these kind of reports. Like, it seemed like it was really bad. It seemed like there was tornadoes everywhere. Like, what exactly happened? Like, what track did this take? And you could see it started in the tornadic activity started, I want to say it was around 6 p.m. It started in the southwest, and it literally just like cut diagonal across the entire state of Oklahoma in a line of tornadoes. All in all, there was 14 tornadoes reported. Um, all from the last information I saw, either EF0 or EF1. And so, of course, that scale goes up to the EF5, but EF0s and EF1s are still pretty terrifying when they're outside of your door. The closest tornado to here to us was about 20 minutes away. And, it is, again, on the lower end of that scale, but still, doing some damage and still pretty frightening because you never know. But that is one of the articles that you can check out. The most recent in the last couple of days. And then, of course, Monday, Indigenous Peoples Day. It was nationally recognized by President Joe Biden. I want to say for the first time in history, last week, the first ever presidential proclamation of Indigenous Peoples Day. And so it's good to see that level of presidential support, what the Supreme Court had done, last year, and saying it's a decision a lot of people apparently don't agree with, that, these reservations were never disestablished by Congress. But the fact of the matter is Oklahoma is a huge part still being Native American reservations. And that is the promise. The Trail of Tears, they were all forcibly moved here to have the state of Oklahoma. And there's a lot of people who are deciding that it's finally time to honor that move and those treaties, even though they've been trampled over for a really long time. And so that is a huge thing going on in the state of Oklahoma. Through the Oklahoma Media Center, which VNN is a part of, we actually have been focusing this entire year on a series called Promised Land, which talks about that Supreme Court ruling and its effects. But I thought that it was a great opportunity to, talk about Indigenous Peoples Day and, the issues that are happening right now, but kind of under the light of, Native American cultures and the fact that these tribes are still alive and thriving after everything that happened to them more than 100 years ago is a miracle. Like, it's miraculous and it's amazing to me. And I think that that is a huge part of this country's history and, humanity's history, and that we should all be working to be preserving these cultures and these peoples and this diversity, because it's incredible and it should be appreciated. And so hopefully we can all find a way to work and live together and be at peace and find some common ground where we can, honor what is and do the right thing. Full disclosure, obviously, Verified News Network is a Native American owned company. We are a Muskogee registered business. Our president and CEO is a Muskogee citizen. So that is a lot of importance for our coverage right there. But, just Oklahoma and the history and kind of and the promises that were made and were not kept is something that we are definitely trying to bring more light to and kind of be, I want to say, like a different perspective than, again, what the mainstream media typically reports on. With McGirt, you see a lot of McGirt being that Supreme Court case that, changed everything as far as kind of flipping the scripts of, no, this land is theirs and we need to, start recognizing them as sovereign nations. Um, but a lot of stuff is reported as like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, law enforcement. Oh, the system's overloaded. The systems aren't in place. Well, obviously they're not in place as they ought to be, because there's been jurisdictional wrongdoing by the state of Oklahoma for the last 100 years. Not letting these people govern themselves and be truly sovereign the way that they should have been allowed to be and exercising. Um, and so there's a lot of negative on like, oh, this court case was tossed out and they're being retried in federal court and, oh, but when in reality, there's not a lot of positive coverage about the awesomeness that this means for the tribes, and kind of blowing the ceiling out of like, listen, it's time to be truly sovereign and to exercise all these rights that you haven't been able to, and really flourish and not be held back or held down anymore. And so I think that there's a lot of growing pains, if you will, with all this happening, but it really is for the greater good of these peoples, and what is owed to them at the very least, after what everyone went through back then, and generationally what a lot of families are still going through. But long story short, Indigenous Peoples Day was Monday, and celebrations were had, and we did touch on some things. The last story here, I haven't got around to figuring out how to scroll through my feed here, but it is our latest Cannabis Weekly story. And so you'll see those in our app. Those stories are presented by Elevate Holistics, which is another, if you were listening earlier, when I had mentioned that I was on a show, a reality TV show for entrepreneurs that we filmed earlier this past summer. Elevate Holistics is one of the companies that were there during my season. And, they said that they were looking to share more stories about, fun stories about cannabis, because it is it's a treatment for a lot of people that they find a lot of help with, anxiety or pain or seizures, and, just this natural plant that has a lot of benefits, health benefits for helping a lot of different ailments. They help people get their medical marijuana cards. They help, doctors get set up to help issue them. And so they're just really about helping people elevate their health naturally. And, they were looking for ways to, get the word out about what they do, and have some fun content, because it doesn't all have to be about the medicinal properties. People who use marijuana healthfully, it's something that for a lot of times is a saving grace for them, and it doesn't have to all be serious. There's fun stories and things, and if you kind of flip through our stories through the Cannabis Weekly, you'll see, and then of course you'll see them. They are on in our, of course, that feature is presented every Monday, and new articles. I love reading them myself, and it's fun never knowing what it's going to be about. This one obviously is about making pot brownies, which I don't think I would ever attempt. But I actually am not uh, uh, really afraid to say anymore that I used to use marijuana to treat my anxiety. But then I just have regular, I don't know if I would, I don't really get too out in the open about my own problems. And that's something that I'll actually kind of talk about um, towards the end of this for those people that are hanging in there to hear about my personal problems. No, but it is important, I feel, to kind of get to know each other on a personal level. But I have a panic disorder that I've had for a very long time, probably since I was about 6 years old. And then when I was a teenager into my 20s, I used marijuana to help my anxiety. But then there was this one point where it started giving me anxiety. And so now I just don't do anything, and I don't take any medicine. I hate taking Advil. Um, but, that is just, it worked for a very long time with helping my anxiety, but then it kind of turned on me. And now I just kind of suffer through it. No, I'm just kidding. It's gotten a lot better with therapy. But even like doing stuff like this, you know, I used to, when I was on the news, um, anchoring television shows, like I said, I used to have full blown panic attacks for 30 minutes straight. And it was the most miserable thing that I've ever experienced. But I, was also dealing with a toxic work environment at the time, and other issues that, were going on. But I feel like, and this kind of is a great segue into talking about the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on until you guys start telling me what you want to hear about. And I'm just going to keep trying new things and see whatever does the best. But I did something that was very nerve-wracking for me. I really want VNN and our independent news coverage to succeed. And that's why I've been doing this for more than 3 years, and why I don't see myself giving up anytime soon. It's because I really believe in the stories that we're telling, and we truly are helping people. But along the way, I have realized that there are some things that I wasn't doing that I should be doing. And it's been hard. And I mean, I'm sure there was probably some part of me deep down that knew that I should have been doing this and just was like, no, I do what I want. I'm on my own. I don't have my own boss. I don't have to answer to anybody. I can hide behind my camera and I can do my news stories, and I don't have to share my personal life with anyone or my struggles. And I can just live in my little bubble behind the camera and, give information and news to people, and it's different, and they'll just trust me and they'll believe me. Because I'm a trustworthy person, and I have, a very strong moral compass, and people will just know that. But the truth is that that's obviously false. That's wrong. Like, the people that I'm meeting and who find out about me on the internet and what we're doing, you don't know me. A lot of you don't know me in real life. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know how strong my moral compass is. You don't know anything about me. You just think that I'm just another journalist out here, sharing news and information. And so I realized that what I was doing was asking a lot from you to trust me and to just believe me about what I was saying, especially in this, environment that we're all in, that it's just so hard to trust where news is coming from, and am I trying to trick you? Am I trying to convince you to believe what I want to believe, or what I want you to believe? And like, where is this information really coming from? Who's telling me what to do? And so I launched a new series called the Journalist Diaries, which are really like my diary. And I kind of go very detailed, explaining who I am, why I am the way I am, why I care about this kind of news, which focuses on, justice involved women and drug addicted people and low income uh, families and communities. And that is the news that I care about. I care about abused people. I care about people who have been wronged. And I care about all of those people because that is my background. Like that. And I'm going to touch on this a lot more in my next episode of the Journalist Diaries. But to be honest, like and I had mentioned it in my first episode that I am a high school dropout. I really screwed up in school when I was younger. I had a very hard childhood. I had developmental problems because of my situation that I was living in. And I just didn't develop right. And we're only learning now, like, how important it is that people grow up in good homes without being abused and neglected, and how important that is for your brain, because everyone, thought I was this bad kid that wasn't listening, and I couldn't understand so many things. I couldn't handle my emotions. My brain didn't work right in certain situations. And now, as an adult, 25 years later, I'd be like, oh, wow, I wasn't dumb. I was just in a really, I couldn't think straight because of all these problems that I was dealing with. It wasn't that I, didn't want anything for myself. I dropped out of high school because I had a lot of problems and I didn't have any solutions. And so I just gave up on everything. But, a lot of people don't see that when they see me. Now they don't look at me and see high school dropout. They see accomplished journalist because I, turned my life around. I went to college. I graduated with almost a 4.0 summa cum laude out of my college that I went to when I got my bachelor's degree. And, here I am doing this network. But the biggest driving force for me is knowing, just that knowledge, just knowing that I am this person today that is nothing like how I was when I was younger, having all of these problems and not making good decisions. And I've completely turned my life around. And yeah, I'm not here to say that like every bad thing that someone does is excusable just because of, where they came from. But I am here to say that the bad decisions we make, especially 10, 20 years ago, don't define who we are today. And that's not represented in news. That's not talked about at all. You see the crime stories. This bad guy, this bad woman did this. The good guy came and took them to jail. Shame on them. But, we don't see the systematic problems that keep people in poverty or addicted to drugs or, held down, generational problems that are just passed on. And, or when God finally reaches someone that's in a really low place and pulls them out and they have this amazing comeback, you know, we don't hardly see those stories. And there's a lot of them out there. And that's the big thing too about working in news, like, the traditional TV networks. I was older when I graduated. I had to put myself through college. It took me 6 years to get my 4-year degree. So I was kind of, and I also started late. And so, being a TV person, as a woman, when your days are pretty much numbered anyway, that was hard. But I never felt like I belonged really in that scene. And like, it's not glamorous, but a lot of the people in news come from glamorous backgrounds. They came from money, they came from a two-parent household, which is a huge advantage that people probably don't realize. They didn't, and I'm not saying that all journalists come from really great lives or really great backgrounds, but what it seemed to me was that, people had these dreams for a long time, and, they had successful, supportive parents, and um, I had a lot missing when I was growing up. I had people telling me I would never go to college. I had a lot of adversity that I had to overcome. And then I got there and I was like, wow, not only do I not fit in, I feel like, I am beaten down by, the journey that it took to get here. Then I had to report news that I didn't agree with in a way that, thank you. I appreciate that in the comments, our first comments. um, but I also felt like being forced to tell news stories that I didn't uh, agree with in a way that I didn't agree with. I hated it. I had such a moral struggle going, and I tried forcing my storytelling in. This is the way this story needs to be told. These are the ways that we need to be telling these stories. And I got a few of them in, but it was just really hard on my soul. And I know that a lot of people feel the same way, that are working in news, that are just fighting the good fight. And then eventually, they can't take it anymore and they quit. And some green journalist out of college takes their spot, and for less money. And, that's the news cycle for the last 20 years. So I do want to say thank you, Verified News community, for tuning in to this live stream, VNN Live tonight. If you want to support us and support what we do, make sure that you sign up for our Substack, our newsletter. We have a free newsletter that we send out. It's the weekly digest, which is a roundup of that week's stories. Every month we do a video recap of the month, the stories that only we're covering. VNN, this month in America, our journalists across the country. And we have a premium Substack that you can also sign up for, that gives you some added exclusive content. Over on our Patreon, you can give even a little more, and that's where those videos that I was talking about, the Journalist Diaries, are. Episode 1 is up now. Episode 2 is coming soon. If you missed the beginning of the video, you missed the fact that I blew my knee in a soccer game a few days ago, and I've been hobbling around. These videos involve me walking, so I feel like I should probably get the strength back in my leg before I do another one of those, but that's going to be coming soon. And so you can really get to know me and what is driving me, and all of this funding and everything that we get in is poured back into our communities, back into our local news coverage. We're a network of independent journalists that are just trying to tell stories that no one else is telling. And so that is where you're getting the content through our premium Substack and our Patreon, and you're funding local news in your communities. So it's a super win-win. You can unlock that content, and I'm going to be adding more very soon. We're expanding our journalists next month. That's a surprise. I haven't told anyone else that yet, but we're going to be in even more partner states soon. And so if you're listening in a state that is not Oklahoma, Michigan, New York, Texas, Massachusetts, Alabama, send me an email. drop me a comment in any video. I'm the one that checks them all, and then I'll make sure to try extra hard to get a VNN journalist in your state, because our verified news community, that's who we're dedicated to serving. We have a lot of awesome things in the pipeline. Verified newsies, verified news leaders. I love you all so much. I really appreciate your support. You honestly keep me going. This isn't easy, but I'm not going to give up, and I appreciate you also being right there with me. So thanks for tuning in this Wednesday night, and I will catch you guys next Wednesday. Hope you guys have a good week. See you later.